What's going on, guys? It's New York Prepper here. In this video, I want to share another overlooked prep. This is overlooked prep number 31, and I want to talk to you guys today about chainsaws. I think chainsaws are an extremely important tool for SHTF, and what you're looking at here is my steel Farm Boss. Okay, I've used this saw extensively. All right, when I had a firewood business, all right, I cut like probably dozens and dozens of cords with this steel Farm Boss. I absolutely love this saw for the money. It's the best saw that you can get that'll give you professional quality and professional, nearly professional chainsaw here, and it's relatively inexpensive. I think I paid like $400 for it, and that was back in like 2002. So I've had this saw for almost 20 years. I've cut dozens of cords with this, hardwood cords, okay, oaks and very dense trees, and I never had any problems with this saw. I absolutely love it. You can see it's pretty beat up here. And actually here we have the chain catcher here. You can see that I had one situation where the chain derailed, and you can see the chain catcher did its job, and it scratched it. The chain scratched the chain catcher. So you can see how dirty this thing is. It's seen a fair share of use, but never had any issues with steels. Steels are the best saws. This one has a 20-inch bar, okay, and I think a 20-inch bar for most people is all you need. I've cut 3-foot diameter red oaks with this saw, and I never had any problems. Takes a little bit longer, but it'll get the job done. The most important thing with the chainsaw is you want to make sure that you know how to sharpen a chain by hand. Okay, that'll save you a lot of money, obviously, but also if it's SHTF and the power goes out, you're going to have to be able to sharpen these chains by hand. And sure, you can buy spare chains and stockpile spare chains, but when your chain goes dull, that doesn't mean you have to replace the chain. I mean, you can sharpen one chain dozens of times before you have to actually replace it. You can get a lot of life out of a good quality chain, all right? And I recommend if you buy a chain, get yourself a steel chain, all right? Steels are the best saws in my opinion, and the best chains also. They have really good chains. I've had this one chain here that's on this I probably cut dozens of cords with it, and I haven't had to replace it yet. I never had any problems. But a chainsaw is important for SHTF because obviously you may have to cut wood for a variety of reasons. You may have to cut wood for, let's say, firewood, okay? If you live in a colder climate like I do, you may have to cut, trees for firewood, or down logs. You may have to cut them up and buck them up into 18-inch lengths so you can fit them in a wood stove or fireplace. So, obviously a good chainsaw is critical, so you can cut firewood. And you obviously want to have a lot of knowledge and experience with your saw. All right, so you don't want to just go out and buy $1,000 saw and never use it, and then society collapses and you got to cut wood, and it's your first time using a chainsaw, okay? And now all of a sudden, if you run into problems, no one's going to be there to help you. You're not going to be able to go and figure out what's wrong with the saw or what you're doing wrong, or learning different cutting techniques and things like that. So now's the time to learn and practice with your saw, okay? Using a chainsaw is a lot more complicated than people realize. And again, I had a firewood business, okay? I sold firewood for many years, and I've cut dozens of cords. And there's ways to cut wood safely, okay? I also went to forestry school as well. So you have to know how to cut wood safely. Chainsaw is one of the most dangerous tools that you can use. All right, when this chain is turning at 13,000 revolutions per minute, okay, this chain right here will spin at 13,000 RPM, okay? So every minute, this chain is spinning 13,000 times, all right? And these are razor sharp cutters. Every chain has, over 2 dozen cutters on it, depending on how long the chain is, and you can easily just cut down into your bone, you know, just by a light glancing blow. All right, so you have to know what you're doing. You have to be able to fix your saw. You have to understand how it operates. You have to be able to adjust the carburetor in the field, all right, because when you use a saw a lot, the carburetor may need fine-tuning when it starts to heat up, especially in the summertime. You may have to play with the idle speed. And these are all things that you're not going to find out until you actually use your saw, okay? You have to go out and use it and practice and get good with it, understand how to fix it, learn how to sharpen it, learn how to cut safely, okay? It's just like using a firearm, okay? A chainsaw is like a firearm. There's a lot to learn about them. There's a lot of skill involved, so get out there and practice with it if you are going to get a saw. Now, in addition to cutting firewood, you know, having a chainsaw is also important for, if let's say for security reasons, if you want to block a road or something along those lines, you know, let's say you live in a small neighborhood and you want to block the road off so people can't come into your neighborhood. What you want to do is drop some trees in front of the road, and what that'll do is create a barrier so you know, people can't drive in with vehicles. And there's a special way to do that, okay? In the U.S. military manuals, they talk about ways that you can cut down trees to stop tanks, and you can actually stop tanks and heavy armored vehicles if you take trees and you cut them at 45-degree angles towards the road, okay? And let's say you have a road, you cut the trees at a 45-degree angle. So if this is your road here, okay, your road is here, okay? You have a tree, let's say this is a tree right here, okay? You're gonna cut the tree so it comes down on a 45-degree angle. All right, and then let's say you have another tree. This is another tree here. You're going to cut it and make it fall also on a 45-degree angle. So you have 2 trees on 45-degree angles now. And this is straight from the military, okay? This is the U.S. military manual on how to block tanks and heavy equipment from coming down a road, okay? And if you drop enough trees like that, you have to interlock them. So you drop one tree 45 degrees, then on the other side you drop another tree so it falls on the other one, okay? And then you just keep going, and the more you have, the better. But what's going to happen here now is this is where it really starts to work, is that if the vehicles start to come down the road, let's say they're going this way, okay, in this direction. All right, let's say this is this is a tank right here, okay? This Sprocket here is a tank, and they're trying to plow through, okay? Or it doesn't have to be a tank, but it could be a heavy pickup truck, or you know, a dually or something along those lines. And they want to plow through these trees that you dropped. What's going to happen is, as it pushes in, watch what happens with these things here, okay? What happens is, it's a little bit hard to see, but what's going to happen is the trees, you see how they start to squeeze together, and they lock up together like that, okay? And when they lock up like that, it makes it very difficult for the tank or heavy vehicle to push through, okay? So let's try that again. Let's say you have your tank coming here. This is our tank, or whatever, heavy pickup truck or dump truck or somebody, whatever. They're trying to go through, and they're pushing the trees. And what's going to happen is, these trees, when they push through, you see the trees, how they're straight now? They're going to lock up together, and all the branches and everything are going to tangle up. And if you have a couple of trees on either side like that, it's going to create a mass, tangled mess of trees, okay? And the vehicle here is not going to be able to get through, okay? They can try to drive through, but as you see, they're locked in together, and he's not going to be able to push all that wood. And the more he pushes, the more the trees are going to lock up together, okay? So that's why having a chainsaw is important, all right? You know, because you need to be able to drop those trees to block the vehicles. Now, if let's say you only cut the tree in like a 90-degree angle, like this chain bar cover here is your road, and this is a tree, and you just, you know, cut it like one tree across the road. That's not a good barrier, because if your tank or your heavy vehicle's coming through, they're just going to be able to push it out of the way. Okay, they're going to push it and they're going to be able to get through the road. Okay, and that's no problem. So what you want to do, like I said, you want to, you know, drop your trees at a 45-degree angle so they interlock, and then when they try to push through this interlocked thing, you see how the trees come together, and when they come together, they lock up together, and it makes it a lot harder. Okay, so let me just demonstrate that one more time here. Okay, so you have your interlocked trees at 45-degree angles, and you know, you have your heavy vehicle. Let's say this is Bubba, and you know, Bubba and his buddies from, you know, they got some heavy dually pickup trucks, or maybe they have a dump truck, and they want to come into your neighborhood and they want to ravage your neighborhood. They want to take all your supplies and have their way with your wife and stuff like that. All right, they got a whole convoy behind them, and they're gonna raid your whole neighborhood and pillage. All right, so you cut your trees at your 45-degree angle, just like I mentioned. Couple of trees on either side, and they're going to try to plow through, because Bubba's got a big dually and he's very confident, and he's going to try to plow through. And when he tries to plow through, you see how the trees lock up together. Okay, and he can keep pushing, but the more he pushes, the more the trees are going to lock up together, and the more trees that you have, the more that they're going to just lock up, and it's going to create a giant log jam. Okay, and they're not going to be able to get through. All right, it's going to block them off. And that's where the chainsaw is important. Okay, if you don't have a chainsaw, you're not going to be able to do that. All right. Now, obviously, another way that you can use a chainsaw is, you know, let's say you're, you may live in a very secluded area, and if you live in a secluded area, you could get trapped. All right, there may be a storm, and the tree falls in front of the road, and you can't get out. So that's where having a chainsaw is important as well. When I first moved here, where I live right now in upstate New York, the first summer that we moved here, this was about 20 years ago, the first summer that we moved here, there was a huge thunderstorm, and this giant oak tree about 2 feet in diameter got blown down, and it blocked the road, and it's the only road to get in and out of my area here. Okay, because I live in a very secluded area, and that oak tree blocked the road, and it was 2 feet in diameter, so there's no way you're moving that out of the way. And you know, the power was out for days, and you know, obviously the town highway department isn't going to be able to get out there right away to cut that big tree. So I had to go out with my saw and my neighbor, and we cut the tree up. And we were able to, you know, remove it from the road. But, you know, so those are the reasons you need a chainsaw. Okay, firewood to set up roadblocks for security, and also for, you know, storms. Okay, and another thing with the chainsaw, okay, you want to obviously know how to use it. Like I mentioned, you want to practice with it and all that. You're going to want some basic peripheral equipment. Okay, here I have just a little safety vest. All right, you're going to want to wear a safety vest on you when you're cutting. Okay, here I have one of the most important things that you can get is Chaps. Okay, these are Kevlar. They have 7 layers of Kevlar. Okay, and these are probably usually run about $75 to $150, depending on, you know, how much stuff you want to add on to your Chaps, you know. But, you know, a basic pair of Chaps are going to cost you about $75. Okay, you don't want to go cheap on the Chaps. Okay, this is just, you know, basic cutting Chaps here. Okay, I use these when I used to cut firewood. Okay, you can see how dirty they are. And the big thing with Chaps is you want to make sure that they're listed here. Leg protective garment. Okay, for leg protection of chainsaw users. All right, typically the main thing that you want is you're going to want 7 layers of Kevlar. Okay, that's considered the basic standard. by OSHA, okay? And in order for these to get certified, they have to have 7 layers of Kevlar, all right? So get yourself chaps. Chaps are important because if you accidentally cut your thigh open with a chainsaw, after SHTF, that's a big problem, okay? You're not going to be able to get reconstructive surgery. You'll probably get a really bad infection, and you may potentially die, okay? You may get sepsis and stuff like that, all right? So get yourself some chaps, because most chainsaw injuries, they happen to your legs, all right? Because when you're holding a chainsaw, your legs are the first thing that's in the line of fire, okay? Because you hold your chainsaw usually at waist level, and if you're cutting a log, all right, the chances of your chainsaw hitting your thigh or your calf is much higher than your upper body, okay? Most chainsaw injuries are typically your thighs or your face, okay? And the reason why is you get chainsaw injuries on your face because of kickback, okay? And kickback is when you're running your saw really fast and hard, and kickback happens when you have a log that squeezes the blade, okay? Not the blade, the bar, all right? It squeezes the bar in the chain, and that's, again, if you don't know how to cut wood with a saw, you don't understand the basic principles of kickback and how to avoid pinching your saw, all right? If you're just cutting through a log without making any relief cuts, the log will start to close on the chain, okay? Because let's say you have a log that's horizontal and you're trying to cut through the log, okay? What happens is if you don't make a relief cut on the back side of your cut, okay, what's going to happen is as you're cutting through that log, it's going to start to close, okay, under gravity. It's going to close on your chain, and when it closes, it's going to pinch the saw, and because you have so much power here in this chain when it's running, all right, that inertia has to go somewhere, okay? You have all that chain spinning, and the log closes on the chain. It causes the saw to kick up, okay, towards your face. It'll kick up like, you know, it'll snap up towards you, okay? And that's why you have this chain break here. So what happens is if the saw kicks up, the chain break hits your wrist, okay? And when it hits your wrist, it stops the chain. It's actually engaged right now. All right, I wish I saw were to kick up towards my face. I'll try to demonstrate. Let's say I'm cutting a piece of wood and the log pinches on my chain. The saw is going to want to kick back towards me like this, okay? It's going to come right up really fast towards my face, okay? So what happens is when that happens, if it comes back, watch what happens here, okay? It's going to, let's say it's kicking up, and it's going to hit, the chain break is going to hit my wrist, and it's going to automatically lock the chain, okay? Now, even if it locks the chain, you can still get hurt, okay? Because these metal cutters, even though they're not moving, are razor sharp, all right? So the most injuries are to your face and to your legs, okay? So you need to have proper protection. And, you know, again, in addition to thigh protection, you want, you know, head protection, all right? You want this type of helmet here, okay? This is just a basic cutting helmet. It's just a hard hat that has ear protection built in and a face mask, a face shield, and you're going to want this face shield because all the chips are going to be flying in your face, okay? But this hat here, this helmet, is going to protect you if you get kickback and the saw comes towards your face. It's going to hit your helmet here rather than going into your forehead, all right? And again, these helmets are like $30, so there's no reason not to get them, all right? So Chaps helmet, very important. Now, you're going to want to get yourself a spare sprocket, okay? This is the sprocket is what turns the chain, okay? This is attached to your engine, your motor, and the chain goes around this little gear here, and that's what turns it. Over time, these sprockets will wear out, okay, because of the you know, the speed of the chain moving so fast. The metal on these teeth here start to wear out, so you need to get you need to have fresh sprockets on hand. So I should really have more. I should have a couple more of these, but you know, I'm going to stockpile a couple more. But you definitely want to have a spare sprocket, okay? Spare spark plugs are important as well. Okay, you're going to go through spark plugs if you cut a lot of wood. And some spare chains are important as well. Okay, you know, just get yourself a good quality chain. I prefer steel. And here we just have some cutting gloves. These are very important as well. If you're going to be cutting a lot of wood, you need some good cutting gloves. All right, and these gloves right here, they have like this spongy, I think it's like a neoprene or some kind of like gel padding on them, and what that does is it prevents the vibration from damaging your hands. Okay, if you do a lot of cutting, look at how dirty this glove is. You can see how much use I've had out of it. When you do a lot of cutting, the vibrations can damage your nerves in your hand, all right, from the vibration of, you know, this chain is moving at 13,000 RPM, all right? This chain is turning 13,000 times per minute, all right? And it's hitting hard wood, and those vibrations are going to be transferred into your hands, so you want to protect your hands so you don't have damage to your nerves, okay? So this is Kevlar as well, but you want to get these padded gloves that have pads on them, all right? Like here you see that this has 2 pads on the palm here, and that protects you from the vibration damage. And then also, these are really good because they have Kevlar. The whole glove is made of Kevlar here, okay? You can see that Kevlar material. All right, and the Kevlar is also important for kickback, you know, if the saw kicks back, or also if you break your chain or the chain derails from the bar. If you have like a chain break situation, you know, that chain can come around and lash the back of your hand and rip the back of your hand open. All right, so you want to have these Kevlar gloves as well. All right, and that's pretty much it. Another thing you can do is get yourself marking paint. Marking paint is good if you want to mark some of the wood for cutting. But that's pretty much it, guys. And also you want some sharpening tools. Okay, I forgot to mention that. Here we just have a file with a guide on it. You don't really need the guide. I just do it without the guide, but here's a guide. You want to read the manual of your chainsaw to see what you're supposed to use. Every chain is different, so read the manual for the chain. When you buy a chain, it comes with a little information on what the angles should be for when you're filing. Okay, and here I have this field sharpening kit here from Steel. Okay, you wear this on your belt. It has a little belt loop here, so you can carry this with you. And let me just open this thing up here as best as I can with one hand. I should have really set up my tripod, but here we go. So here I just have this field sharpening kit. I have just a regular round file here for the cutters. Here I have a raker gauge or depth gauge, all right, for filing down the rakers. Okay, the rakers are important for determining how much wood the cutters take off, okay, with every pass of the chain. So chainsaw teeth, when you look at the chain of a chainsaw, they don't just have cutter teeth, okay. There's also like a piece of metal behind the tooth, and that piece of metal determines how deep the chain will cut, how much wood it will cut. All right, so here you have here's the cutter. This is the sharp portion, and then in front of it you have this dull metal here, and that dull metal you have to file down. As you sharpen the cutter, you have to file that dull metal down, because what this does is it determines how much wood the cutter is going to take off with every pass of the chain. So as you sharpen the tooth, you have to sharpen this down. Okay, so it gets lower as you remove more material from the tooth. All right, and then I just have a flat file in here for filing down the rakers as well. All right, so get yourself a nice toolkit like this. Have some spare files on hand, round files especially. If you do a lot of cutting, you're going to go through these round files very quickly. Okay, so get a lot of round files. I have to stock up and get some more All right, but I just wanted to do this quick video. Well, it's actually not that quick, but it's a very important video. Okay, so think about all these things, guys, and thanks for watching. Take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 P's: prepare, practice, and persevere.